guys? Hello and welcome back to the Spurs-related YouTube channel and podcast. I hope everyone's doing very well today. Today, we've got a little transfers update live stream. We've not done a live stream for a week or so I thought it would be a great idea to connect back with you guys, see your guys' thoughts on everything that's going on Tottenham transfer news, and what better way to do so than my guest today, George Achillea, fellow Spurs YouTuber, is in the building. George, how you doing, mate?
I'm very good, man. Very good. I'm excited. There's a big buzz around Tottenham right now. I think now that we're finally going to see some of this progressive football that we've been promised. So yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yeah, I've seen you. We were talking backstage, weren't we? I've seen you doing your little reels and TikToks and the hypes generating your side as well, which we're loving. The Spurs relatables this side are absolutely loving it. And I guess the next question is what's going on with these centre backs. But we will get into things, George. We will be discussing Tapsoba, Van de Ven, and any other little rumours that are going on. I can already see there's 40-50 of you guys across socials, and I'm sure that'll grow. Big yourselves up. I'm sure some of you come from George's channels and some of you are regular subscribers. So everyone, please, as I said already before, smash the thumbs up. It helps massively on the channel. It helps us grow and beat those YouTube algorithms that I still really don't understand, if I'm being genuinely honest.
No one
does. And subscribe if you're new. But without plugging it too much, obviously as well, without plugging us too much, sorry. Please, if you don't follow George already, I'm sure a lot of you do, please do go and subscribe to his channel. It's in the description of the video and on the title I've tagged, so I think you can stay on the video and subscribe. So please go over and just tap those two buttons. But we'll get into things. We'll quickly welcome in the chat, and then we'll start talking all news today. Obviously, Manuel Solomon has been announced as a Tottenham player. It took a little while to get that medical over line, but it is there. But Peter Ager's in here saying, big up, guys. Big up, Peter. He's saying, will we get in a centre-back or two? That's the first talking point. So I'm sure George's brain will be warming up on that one. Sukil's saying, we need to sign Van de Ven fast before pre-season starts. Completely agree. We haven't got long before pre-season now. Peter saying, Tapsoba and Van de Ven would be a perfect window. Zach saying, big up, lads. Big up, Zach. Always here. He says, let's hope Van de Ven before the tour. And Lynch is in here saying, hopefully you sign a defender. I'm sure there's going to be loads more comments throughout. Please do wait your comments in, your questions for George and myself, and we'll get to as many as possible. And of course, there is that super chat option. If you do want to skip the queue, I think it's £1 or £2, and you can skip the queue with your talking points. So please do feel free to do so. Right. Enough talking from me because I'm already sick of hearing my own voice. George, let's talk. Actually, I'm going to rewind before we talk about centre-backs and talk about that Ange interview yesterday.
Yes.
Where a lot of hype, obviously, a lot of comedic answers from Ange, including, obviously, he had a bit of a bet with his colleagues saying how long before he gets asked about Harry Kane, which was quite amusing. And I picked out a couple of comments. And he's saying, obviously, we need a strong team. I mean, George, very, very quickly, thoughts on the squad at the moment and how happy would you be going into the new season as it is?
It's obviously a very bloated squad. I think there's no denying that with the amount of players we had on loan last year. The fact that we had to rip up Doherty's contract just to even sort out a transfer in January sort of tells you where we're at right now. But I just like so far how quickly we've done some of the transfers. Obviously, albeit we've got a lot more that we need to do, especially in the real problem areas. Yeah. But with the squad as it is now, I wouldn't. Attacking wise, absolutely phenomenal. I think we've done a great job there so far, bringing in Solomon and Maddison, and good to get a goalkeeper in early doors. Especially the fact that Brentford weren't budging on the Raya deal. I would have loved Raya, but at the end of the day, they're not moving on 40 mil, which would have made him, I think, the third most expensive goalkeeper ever, or something along those lines.
Wow, good stat. I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Kepa and Alisson take the top two spots at around about 70 odd mil. I know Kepa was like 72, and I think Alisson was roughly the same, maybe 68 mil. I think he'd be third or fourth potentially.
But yeah, I reckon you're right on fourth. Yeah.
Either way, he's definitely high up. And look, as much as we want to talk about getting our first targets and getting them in through the door, yes, I did like him a lot, but at the end of the day, to bring him in as a fourth choice, not fourth choice, sorry, the fourth highest goalkeeper, And then you're basically setting a precedent early on in the window that, yeah, we're willing to just accept whatever offer you want. Remember,
Yeah.
James Maddison, like Leicester, initially wanted 60 mil for him alone. So if we originally accepted the 40 mil from Raya, then Leicester would have stood their ground and be like, well, clearly you got the money, clearly you went to pay for it, and it would just have this horrible knock-on effect. So, but I
100%.
like the fact for once we were actually decisive. A lot of these times when we want to go for these targets, we tend to drag them out for a long, like we all know how long we drag out these deals throughout the whole of the summer, and sometimes it goes all the way up until the deadline day. So it's nice that we actually had other options like Vicario in place to be like, look, the clearly going down this data-driven route, the club feel that he's on par with Raya, and we got him like what 12 mil cheaper, I think it was.
Yeah, about at least 12,
At
if
least,
not
yeah.
Potentially, a little
Actually,
bit
no,
more.
sorry, yeah, a lot more, yeah. So probably about 20 odd mil cheaper. So at the end of the day, if they view him about the same, then yeah, fair dues. But I think definitely the centre back it's a massive, massive issue. I think we shipped 68 goals, I think it was last season, which
Ridiculous.
is just ridiculous. Like in terms of attack, we were fine last year. Well, in terms of goals, if I'm not mistaken, I think we were potentially third or fourth. Yeah, for goals. So goals conceded was obviously woeful. So that needs sorting ASAP. So if we were to go into I just long-winded the answer, but to go into the season with the squad as it is now, I wouldn't be too happy just because we can't be having another season of Dyer, Sanchez, and Davis at the back. But other than that, I think it's been pretty good.
No, I think you're spot on in what you're saying. It's a great start, and I think the thing I worry about is, and I think a lot of people in the chat probably agree, is this time last year we were saying similar things. We were like, brilliant, we've made a great start. We signed Fraser Forster, we signed Richarlison, and it was like hype. We've signed 4 or 5 players, and then it got to sort of mid-July, end of July, and we were like, okay, where's the rest? And then we didn't get the rest. We didn't really get that centre back, did we?
Yeah,
we got Longley on a loan, which was like, we're now even talking about getting Longley back again, which is incredible in my opinion. Personally, I don't know what you think, but I'll quickly go back to, you mentioned there Davinson Sanchez, and I just wanted to pick up a bit of news earlier from Fabrizio Romano saying Galatasaray have sent verbal proposal to Tottenham for Davinson Sanchez. Understand the proposal is around 9 million euros fee, but Sanchez also has 2 to 3 more clubs now keen on signing him, which I believe are Villarreal. I'm not entirely sure who George, you might be able to tell me the third one, but
I can't. I've got a weird feeling it's an Italian team, but I can't. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but I mean, Galatasaray and Villarreal are definitely in the hunt. And what's your thoughts on 9 million euros, considering we signed Davinson Sanchez in 2018 for about 30, 40 million pounds?
It was like 42, I think. I think it was a record at the time. Yeah. Look, I mean, it's a massive drop, but at the end of the day, he's got I think 1 year left on his deal. We just want to move him on. We probably can increase the 9 million euros, probably maybe closer to 15 if it is true that there are 2 to 3 other clubs interested.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I think with a lot of these players, we are just going to have to bite the bullet, take the L, sell them for what we can get, really. Because at the end of the day, if we're holding out for if it's 9 mils the offer and we're holding out for 12, what's the point? We're better off just getting the wages off the books and moving on, to be honest with you. So look, yeah, it's a big loss, but at the end of the day, he's sort of surplus to requirements. So I think
I agree,
move him on as quickly as we can, and it's best for him as well. I think he probably will want to know where he's going to be for next season and get cracking with preseason himself.
100%, I agree. Like, we've got to bite the bullet. Unfortunately, the only concern I have, and I think Daniel Levy's sort of coming to terms in terms of, having to take cuts on these players, having to take cuts on these assets where maybe he thought he would get something out of it. Like, for example, Lo Celso and definitely Ndombele. Ndombele was 50, 60 million pounds, and Daniel Levy knows that he's not even going to get half of that back for him. So it's like, we're now trying to embed him into the team. I will get your thoughts, George, on Ndombele, because personally, I'm the guys know I'm not a massive fan of Ndombele. And listen, if Ange wants to try him out this season, fine. But I just have my hesitations about how well he's going to do, and is he going to be toxic in the dressing room? Actually, I'll get your quick thoughts on that now while we're talking about Ndombele.
For me, like when he first signed, I was his biggest fan, man. I can't lie. Maybe I got sucked in too much by the comps on Twitter and what we saw. But no, to be honest, it wasn't even just that. Like, it's the fact that we actually fought off Man City for his signature as well, which I think a lot of people forgot. That was probably one of the first signings in a long time where we actually stood up to the big dogs and thought, you know what, for once we are actually going to pay the fee that the club are asking for, and beat one of the top clubs to sign him. So I was like, I was buzzing at the time, and especially because like he is genuinely one of the most technically gifted players in Europe. Like there is that's it's factual. Even Gareth Bale himself came back to Spurs and said he was the player that took him most by surprise, and was saying he's got the most abundance amount of skill, and the things he can do with the football is just outrageous. So if you've got the Gareth Bale certificate of approval, then he's clearly a very good player. The problem is that, and I guess everyone knows about it, is obviously the work rate. And I do think the problem is we brought him in for Pochettino. Pochettino at the start of that season, it obviously all fell apart completely for one reason or another. We can point to so many different things. But then since then, we brought in 3 very conservative managers in Mourinho, Nuno, and Conte.
Very.
And the thing with those 3, and I think Conte especially, mainly because he plays with 2 midfielders. With Mourinho and Nuno, he got away with it like a little bit. And to be fair, he actually was quite good for the first 6 months. I would have thought. I remember under Mourinho, but because there's 3 midfielders, he can get away with not necessarily doing all the dog work. But he quickly got found out, especially in that game against that Burnley when he wasn't tracking back, and then massively in Conte's team where he only plays with 2 central midfielders. So whoever's in there is expected to do everything. They need to run back, they need to defend, they need to create. And he just isn't that guy. I think he wants to be almost as close to the striker as possible, have the ball at his feet. It's going to be glued to him, but at the end of the day, if he loses it, don't really expect him to track back. So that's my main issue with him. You can say what you want in terms of like training clips. Like some of them, you can see him looks like he's busting a gut, but then is that the club just showing you the good clips to make him look good? And obviously wants to give him a second chance, but again, it's preseason. Who knows? Like there's just a massive, probably big cloud over whether it's going to work or not. But my heart honestly is like, I would love it if he just returned and just became this player that we dreamed he was. But at the end of the day, it's been a few seasons now, and I've come to learn that it's not always the way you want it to be. So
especially with Tottenham, And did you see that, just going back to what you said about in training, he might be great, and the club picking out the clips? Did you see that clip of him in training? I think it was 2 days ago, and he's done keepy ups and then put it over one player and then put it over another player, and you sat there thinking like, wow, if you could bring this guy on for 20 minutes and even 15, 20 minutes, he doesn't need to absolutely bust a gut for 90 minutes. He comes on, he's creative in the midfield, even in the 10, and he can make things happen. You're like, well, yeah, that would be really good for an Ange system. And actually, if we're losing a game or drawing a game, we need the points. That is incredible to have in the reserves, right? But how many magic moments does he have? That's my only concern. Like, that's on the pitch.
That's the thing. And like, look, I think a lot of it is all just on paper for now. We haven't seen any preseason or what yet. But thinking in theory about the type of player he is, you'd like to think he fits that number 8 role really well in terms of his characteristics as a player. And especially now that we have someone like Basuma in the squad, who he will do a lot of that dirty work, and he's probably going to have to play that number 6 sort of defensive mid role, especially for now while like Bentancur and Co are out, or if we bring in another defensive midfielder. So you can almost see him being behind Ndombele, helping him out. And like you said, maybe it's the games where we're expected to be dominant anyway, so he can play those games and doesn't have to like necessarily track back all the time. But then also, I think for him personally, I think he's got to realize that if he wants to have some sort of major career now, he's going to have to maybe try at Spurs, because at the end of the day, he's not going to get an offer from a top club. Like Napoli, he was on bench for most of the season. Yeah, it's honestly just a wait and see thing at the moment. I think it could be a good stopgap for now. We're clearly focusing on sorry if you can hear my dog in the background, but we're clearly focusing on like centre backs and the forwards this window. And then maybe in future windows, that's where we look to bolster the rest of the midfield. So maybe he's just here to be a squad player for the next season until we can get new players in next year. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're going to be keeping at this point, especially as Lo Celso's linked out as well. So to me, it just all the signposts are that Ange wants to build a team, and he mentioned in his press conference yesterday. I haven't got the exact quote now, but it was in yesterday's video, and basically he said he wants to give everyone almost a clean slate, and he wants to be able to judge, the outgoing process one by one, and not just get what he's heard. He wants to judge it himself and directly, and that's fair enough, because then all the players feel like, even Reguilon, who got loaned out last year, and Lo Celso, they've all got chances. It looks like Lo Celso's going to Real Betis by the looks of things today. There are 2 to 3 clubs apparently in the race for him, and Betis are keen on opening talks in the next week. Spurs are aware of that. I could see him going back to Spain permanently, to be honest, but
I think so as well.
Let's see what happens on that. And yeah, Fabrizio Romano said we've been approached by Betis today. Other things quickly, guys, in terms of the news, Ange also saying I'm really excited and pleased on James Maddison. These are the types of that my team creating these, like what do you call it? These quote things. It just makes me laugh, because I know they then go viral and people almost use them as a meme, don't they? Those type of memes. But yeah, I did want to hop over to talk about Harry Kane, and George, you probably saw the news today in terms of Matt Law from the Telegraph saying Harry Kane will be able to earn 400,000 Great British pounds a week by staying at Tottenham Hotspur, and is preparing to meet new head coach Ange Postecoglou for the first time. Apparently, Kane has given no indication that he will extend his contract past the forthcoming season, but we are here to do so. But if he was to do so, then Tottenham would be prepared to pay as much as 400,000. I mean, just quickly, George, what are your thoughts on that kind of money?
Well, I mean, look, if that's what it's going to take to keep him, then do it. Pull the trigger, because I can't lie, man. We ain't going to replace this guy. It's going to be impossible. This is a once in a, not even generation. This is like a once in a century sort of player that we've got at our hands. The fact, in terms of a player that's come through the academy, not that someone that we've bought and has turned out to be incredible. So I think it's one of them ones where at this point, if he's not going to get the move, then he should just commit his life to Spurs, because I know every Spurs fan would want to see that. And if it's going to take that sort of money to get it, then so be it. And look, I think there's been so much, honestly, just so much crap in the media, and it's all spouting from German journalists, because they obviously want to protect their darling Bayern Munich and get this deal done. So there's a lot of this fake news going on out there about him or supposedly meeting Tuchel and having breakfast with Tuchel in Germany while he's having fun in America on holiday with his family. So
yeah, unbelievable that.
It is, and well, yes, his agents and his brother and whatever, they might have had discussions with him. That's pretty standard in football. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's 1 foot out the door. And at the end of the day, Bayern Munich are miles away in the estimations for Kane to leave. So we do obviously run the risk of him leaving for free next year. But look, I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. One, you risk losing him to free, and yes, he then could go to a Man United or even Man City if they, by some miracle, try and have the 2 best strikers in the world. He then have the options to go to Real. He could go to wherever he wants next summer.
Of course, he could.
And for me, I think a lot of people do really underestimate just how much of, one, like a family man, and 2, how much of a Chinkford boy, which is the area that I'm from, that Harry Kane is. Like, you'll be very, very surprised at how much of a difference that makes in his decisions. And with his 4th kid on the way, he's building a new house near Wentworth Golf Club.
On Wentworth Golf Club, by the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm surprised he's gonna be teeing off from his own bedroom. Look, I do not see him trying to uproot his family to Germany at this point.
No.
Just to almost hedge your bets and pray that you win the Bayern Munich, the Champions League, which is just not guaranteed at all. Obviously, you've got a much better chance of Bayern Munich than Spurs, but I think maybe Kane's just going to come out to training, see what Ange has to offer, see how preseason goes, might fall in love with the way we're playing, and the fact that we're not in Europe could actually be a massive blessing for us, because that means we're going to have to really truly go for the domestic cups this year.
Yeah.
And if it's the case that, look, I'm not expecting Kane to sign a new deal this summer. I'm not expecting him to sign at the start of the season. I think he'll probably want to see how the season goes. If by some miracle we do end up winning a League Cup or FA Cup and he does it as the captain for Spurs, then I think that will seal his deal to sign a new contract with the club, because then he will have no reason to leave, right? So that's me wishing, hopefully, but yeah, that's the real possibility.
So that was sort of my next question. What do you think it takes to keep Harry Kane here past this season? Is the 400k enough, or do you think we have to win something, or do you think we have to get Europe again? Like, what do you think the minimum sort of guarantee is that he would stay? You know, what is the obligation?
I don't think I don't think getting Europe is going to be enough. Just getting Europe is going to be enough, because look, we've done that for how many seasons now? This is the first season in God knows how long that we haven't done that, and that's clearly not the only factor in it. Yes, there's massive talks about him needing to win a trophy, and obviously it's a huge thing in football. But while he's on hot fire, scoring 30 goals a season or 25 plus goals a season, he's going to be gunning down for that Shearer record. So either way, I don't see him wanting to leave the Premier League until that happens. And I think, I don't know if it's just me and the way I think. A lot of people seem to think that he's maybe better off going to a Real Madrid or Bayern Munich now, winning a trophy, and then coming back to the Premier League in 3 years' time and then beating Shearer's record. But he'll be 33, pushing 34 at that time. There is absolutely no guarantees that he'll be on fire when it comes to goal scoring. He might start to transition like Rooney did into that more attacking midfield role, which then means he'll become a creator. And
he's not going to score more than 10 goals, a season from the number 10, probably anyway, is he?
Exactly. And I think he's 40 goals away, I think, from Shearer's record.
I looked at it today. He's on 213 or 217. So he's either 47 or 43 off. I think it's 47. So right, 47. I think it's 47 goals off, because Shearer's is 260, isn't it?
Yeah. So realistically, in two really good seasons, on the form that he's in, he can break that record. And
100%.
The way I see it, in terms of winning trophies, it's a lot. While he's on this goal scoring form, it's a lot easier to keep the momentum going, break the record in the next 2 seasons. And then, I'm not being funny, he could ride Man City's bench and win every trophy, and then he's got those to his names afterwards. If he loses,
that's true.
Then, do you see what I mean? And or Real Madrid or whoever it may be. Like, I think it's a lot easier for a player or for him in particular, to obviously try and break this record now while he's on the form that he's on, and then go on to, if he hasn't won a trophy at Spurs by then, to move on to someone else and win a trophy, whether that's on the bench or a starter for them or whatever it may be, when he's getting closer towards the end of his career, rather than the other way around, because there's no guarantee that in 2-3 years' time, if he does come back, that he will necessarily be on that same goal scoring form. Touch wood, it doesn't happen, but he might have a major injury by that point, and then he's definitely not scoring goals. So do you see what I mean? In terms of his mindset, I think he's better off, no matter what happens, staying in England and in the Premier League for now, at least. And maybe he sees whether he wins a trophy at Spurs, maybe he wins the Euros with England, and then that could be the factor to him signing a new deal and staying with Spurs for the rest of his career.
That would be perfect. The perfect outcome is we somehow win the FA Cup or the or the what's it called now? Is it the Carabao Cup or one of those two. Top 4, and then England win the Euros. I mean, we'd be
that would be probably that's Ballon d'Or worthy year for Harry Kane if that happens. I ain't gonna lie, winning Spurs a trophy and winning something for England, that you're automatically the best player to ever exist. If you do that,
100%. I'm gonna get through a few comments, George. There is I can't believe I'm saying this. There's over 100 people watching on all socials. So amazing support tonight, guys.
Make sure to like and subscribe while you're here, guys.
Yeah, George, you took the words out of my mouth. Exactly that. 27 likes on the video at the moment, and there's 90 something watching on YouTube and another 20 or so watching on Facebook and Twitter. So please hit that like button. Likes. Free to do so. And guys, there's like I said, 100 of you on YouTube. If 100 of you can go and subscribe to George, I'm sure half of you already subscribed, but let's get him an extra 50 subs. Click on that little tag on the title of the video. It says @official George Achillea, and you go straight through to his channel. I think you can stay on the video and just press subscribe. So I would appreciate if everyone could do that for George giving up his time.
Thank you very much.
Really do appreciate him doing so. Loads of people coming in. Carl's in here, Adrian's in here, and even Ellie earlier was saying George Achillea. Now that's a nice surprise. Creeks rocking YouTube. There you go.
Yes.
So let's move on. We've talked about Harry Kane, and it's making me a little bit anxious. The fact that Bayern are still coming in, and like you said, George, they're miles off the correct bid. Daniel Levy's not going to accept anything under 100, and I would probably say anything under 110, 20, because
especially with the Havertz deal and the Mount deal and the Rice deal, the money that they're going for. And to be honest with you, the age doesn't matter when you're one of the best strikers in the world. Probably second best if you're counting Haaland as first. So there is no way we're going to accept anything less than 100 mil.
Exactly. If Declan Rice, and I know people are going to say, well, Kane's got 1 year left on his deal, but if Declan Rice is worth 105 million with 2 or 3 years, whatever he had left.
Well, I think actually he had 1 year left, but I do think West Ham had like a clause to trigger 1 more year or something. So it's 1 year, max 2 years, and he still went for 105 mil. It was mental.
Exactly. And I'd say Harry Kane, different positions, but Harry Kane's twice the player than Declan Rice. So, without getting stupid with the money, he's got to be worth over 100 million, fact. And the fact that Bayern are thinking of doing a second or third bid for 80 million euros is just, for me, it's an absolute.
I think it comes to about 68 million pounds, which is only 8 million more than what Mount cost. What Mount cost Man U. So
and 10 million more than Ndombele or whatever. So
yeah, exactly.
You put it like that, and you're thinking that is crazy. But guys, let us know in the comments what you're thinking on the Harry Kane situation. I'm going to mix up the topic again, and we've talked about Davinson Sanchez potentially going to Galatasaray for 9 million euros. We've gone through that. Now, this is what I want to talk about, and George, I know this is your speciality at the moment, talking about the centre backs, Van de Ven, Tapsoba, 2 or 3 of the ones we talked about recently and are heavily linked with. I'll just give a bit of news background for those that may not be updated on this. So we've got obviously Van de Ven, Solomon we'll move on to in a minute, but Van de Ven and Tapsoba. So the update on Van de Ven today is Fabrizio Romano said Tottenham are advancing in talks with Wolfsburg for Van de Ven, told the agreement between the clubs is now close. So apparently we're very close in agreement for Van de Ven. Negotiations are underway and talks on Monday were really positive apparently, and we're waiting for the key details. So I could honestly see I need to check my phone that we haven't got one now, but Fabrizio Romano sort of, here we go. I'm expecting it in the next couple of days, really.
I think it has to be for him to be able to be on tour. I think it's got to be probably, hopefully tomorrow, with enough time to get a medical in.
Exactly that. So just quickly, we'll talk about Tapsoba in a minute. I'll keep them separate for now, and then we can compare and say if we need both or whatever. But Van de Ven, what are your initial thoughts on him, George? Do you really, really, want him to join Spurs, or are you not as convinced?
So obviously, I'll be the first to admit when we first were linked with him, I had no clue who he was. I was definitely way more clued up on Tapsoba. One, because I've heard of him before. I think we've also been linked with him before. So I've done a lot more research in the past into him as a player, so I knew about him a lot more. Van de Ven honestly had no clue until we were linked, but then best believe I spent the next 48 hours just deep diving into everything possible just to widen my education on him. And to be honest with you, I think he seems to be a very good player, especially with the ball at his feet. Very, very quick. I think the main downsides that seem to be his aerial ability, which is quite astonishing, really, because I think he's 6'4". So he's quite a tall centre back. Yet somehow his aerial ability is not very good at all. I don't think he wins. I think he's something as, I don't know the exact number, but I think he's something as low as the 17th percentile for aerial duels won. And at that height is a bit worrying. But given his speed and his tackling ability and his passing ability with the ball at his feet, he seems to be a very good young player. I think he's a Dutch under-21 international. They didn't necessarily have the best of under-21 Euro campaigns that are just gone. I think he does seem to be quite a raw player still, but a lot of people seem to be comparing him to Vertonghen in terms of his style of tackling and his presence, which is obviously reassuring to a lot of Spurs.
That is some comparison, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If he can live up to half of what Vertonghen was, then we've got some player at the back. So, look, in terms of the profile of the player, bearing in mind I haven't watched him a crazy amount, he seems to be a great fit. Obviously, left-footed, versatile, can play left back or centre back. Especially as if we're coming up against the tougher teams like your Man Cities or whatnot. If we had Destiny Udogie at left back and a Porro at right back, say, or whatever, it might just be a bit too attacking at the back and too exposed. So to have someone like that could fill in left back would be fantastic. But if we were to do that, I would also want to see another top centre back then play in the left centre back position alongside him. So obviously that's where Tapsoba comes in. But look, at the end of the day, Liverpool wanted him, Van de Ven as well. He was one of their top targets so far, and I think we seem to be moving a lot quicker than them. And a lot of people are asking us to be more like Brighton and Brentford and using this data-driven approach. And to be honest with you, all the data is suggesting that he's a very, very good, promising young player, and I think he will complement Romero quite well. I just think that he's still very, very raw. And may have the odd mistake in him here or there, but he's got good potential.
And the other thing is, George, just checking my internet's fine because I literally cut out halfway through. Then can you hear me?
Yeah, you're all good. You're all good.
Cool. I started to panic, thinking George will be have to host in my own channel in a minute. But no, he's like you said, he's only 22, so he's got time to learn on those mistakes as well.
Exactly. He's still so
and like
young.
You said, rapid, quick, solid. Good in the air. I mean, and
I think he was in the top 10 fastest players in the Bundesliga last year. And as a centre back, that is extremely impressive. And the way that we're going to play now, obviously playing an extremely high line, and the fact that we may be exposed in the fullback area as they push into midfield, we're going to need quick centre backs. And you've got Romero already as the aggressive tackler. I think he's generally quite good at tracking back and tackling players. We're going to need that sort of fast centre back to sort of sweep up when we do get hit on the break. So as a profile, seems to be a good signing.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Loads of people are fans of Van de Ven. Zach saying Van de Ven, bringing him now, and Van Football Vents, big up. Very ironic, the name. He's saying we need a here we go by tonight. Big up, Ollie. Nice to see you, mate. But so you mentioned about potentially playing Van de Ven as almost like the left-sided centre back or the left back, and then you're saying about Tapsoba potentially coming in as well. So you've almost got Porro or Emerson, Romero, Tapsoba, and Van de Ven. Would you say, George, that's almost the perfect situation, or do you think Van de Ven should be the left centre back, and then we should maybe look at a more natural left back in that system? What would you prefer?
I think to be honest with you, my ideal situation is definitely to bring both in, a Van de Ven and a Tapsoba, because the thing with Tapsoba, even though he's right-footed, I think a lot of people get lost in this obsession that a left-sided centre-back has to be left-footed. That is definitely, I think, the case if we're playing a back three. Which is what we've been used to the last couple of years, which that makes a lot more sense, because in a back three, your left centre back almost becomes a left back in certain situations. So it's quite important for that player to be left footed. But in a back four, it's not quite as important. So, and Tapsoba has played left back in a back four. Sorry, not left back. Left centre back in a back four, right centre back in a back four, and a right centre back in a back three. So he can sort of play any of those positions. And he's slightly older. He's a lot more experienced. He's been playing in the Bundesliga for 4 years. He is, I'd say, a lot more composed on the ball as well. And I think you'd feel a lot more solid with a Tapsoba Romero partnership. But I think the beauty of bringing them both in is that we know what Romero's like. He's either he is prone to the odd suspension here or there, or he's maybe even potentially injured, which has happened a few times last season. And if we are
injured while he goes and plays for Argentina,
exactly. So if we do end up in a situation where we're missing him, we're going to want the quality to be there when he's not available. So in the ideal situation then would be Tapsoba plays the right centre back and then Van de Ven left centre back. And I think just the versatility between the two, being able to play a multitude of positions at the back, really, really would help massively. And I think while obviously Van de Ven has a he seems to have a really high ceiling. If he was the only one to come in at left centre back, I think we as fans are just going to have to be prepared that we've still got a raw young player there, and there might be a few mistakes, and it's going to take maybe a couple of years for him to reach the sort of level that we want him to be. Whereas at least with Tapsoba, he's already coming in with that quality. And then
100%.
Van de Ven can either be the understudy or like I was saying, against the tougher teams, can be more of a left back and allow others to push forward.
No, I think you're spot on. I think Tapsoba is slightly more completed, experienced player right now. And I'm actually going to bring up a comment from Alex Scott Boy Jr. So I do like the name. I got to admit, I did time you out earlier because someone told me you were trolling, but you seem like you're not trolling now. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But he's saying Tapsoba is valued at 45 to 50 million. He ain't coming. And it was sort of a similar point I was going to make, George. Do you think, honestly, that we're going to get Tapsoba for 45, even call it 40, I don't think it will be, but say 45, and Van de Ven for 25 to 30, do you think we'd spend 80 million on two centre-backs? I mean, the obvious answer is we need to, but do you think we will, based on your knowledge on Daniel Levy and everything that happens above?
Yeah, I don't think so, unless we get the Hojbjerg deal to Madrid, Atletico Madrid sorted, because at the end, we definitely need those two. In my opinion anyway, because of what they provide and the versatility and the quality that they bring, and the fact that they're both young anyway. But realistically, with Tapsoba being valued at 45 to 50 mil, even if we got it down to 40, that is still quite a bit of money. I think what's most likely going to happen is we'd sign Van de Ven and then probably sign Tosin Adarabioyo from Fulham, because that fee is as low as, I think, £13 million. And he would effectively be Romero's understudy for that right centre-back role. So a backup there, which he'd effectively become Sanchez's replacement, is what Tosin would be. The most perfect world would be that we sell all of our other centre-backs and we can bring in all three of them. That would be the most perfect world, because then you've got 4 quality centre-backs that can rotate quite well. But
you just know it won't happen, though.
It's not going to happen, no.
Dyer's going to stay, isn't he? I mean, apparently Dyer's going to stay, according to Alistair Gold and a couple of other sources. Sanchez looks to be off, which is good. Tanganga, stuff has gone a bit quiet, but apparently we're listening to offers on Tanganga. And then, Ben Davies, if you can count as left centre-back, we're then linked with Longley again. It's like... But you're right. The Tosin deal, 13 million. Just quickly, we'll talk about Adarabioyo. I think I pronounced it right.
Yeah.
Do you think he's a backup option, a bit like a Tanganga, or do you think he's in between a starter and a sort of Tanganga type player?
He's definitely more of a backup, I'd say. I think statistically speaking, he was good. He's okay. Like he's good with the ball at his feet. He's not like outstanding compared to the other targets like Tapsoba and Van de Ven. He's just good with the ball at his feet. Quite a few times he's played a really good passes through the middle in towards Fulham's attack, which is obviously quite promising given our formation. He's very good at tackling, but there's just a lot of things that are just a little bit. It's definitely a backup signing option for me. But I think then it comes to play about the fact that he's homegrown. He's young and can develop, and you could argue under the right manager, he could be a good signing. But at the end of the day, I really do only see him as a backup to Romero for right centre back. So, and to be honest with you, the homegrown situation isn't really much of an issue for us this year because we're not in Europe. Because that was a big issue for us before. Because in Europe, the likes of Davis, Rodon, Dyer, they weren't counted as homegrown because UEFA didn't recognise, because obviously Dyer was I think born in Portugal, raised in Portugal, obviously.
Well, he thinks he's Portuguese, doesn't he, George? I'm surprised, I'm surprised he's not gone for the nationality of Portuguese.
Right, exactly. And I think that was the main issue because they didn't count, whereas they did in the Premier League, and we don't have Europe this year, so it's not much of an issue. I would just want us to bring quality players in. We were so poor defensively. I just don't think now is the right time to just make a 13 million signing on Tosin just purely because he's homegrown and young, when at the end of the day, you could just use an academy player and get them experience into the team. Or even just keep someone like Tanganga, if that's what you're worried about, for someone to sit on the bench. So I definitely would rather we use the funds and try and bring in, let's say, Tapsoba. I think Van de Ven will get over the line quite quickly now. One, because it's a lot cheaper. I think it's close to 25 mil, the deal, which is obviously quite cheap for a centre-back, especially if he's going to be a starting one, which just sort of leads me to believe, bearing in mind we spent quite a bit of money on Romero, just leads me to believe that we might still go back for Tapsoba. But I think what will happen is we'll bring in Van der Ven, 25 mil. It'll get done before preseason so he can join out there, or even if he joins a day late, he'll be out there. And then I think we might look to offload the likes of Hojbjerg or other centre-backs and potentially use those funds to maybe go back to a Tapsoba or another centre-back. That's how I see it, to be honest. We're not going to get both deals done within the next week. That's just not going to happen.
We've got to have outgoings first. And
exactly.
And Ange has almost addressed that, because he was asked something along the lines of who's basically leaving the club. And of course, he's never going to tell the press, but he was basically saying, as I mentioned earlier, he's given everyone a clean slate. He wants to judge it himself in terms of who to get rid of. And maybe in training this week, he's seen that Tanganga should be loaned or maybe even sold. He might have seen that. I just don't see Eric Dyer leaving. I can't see Eric Dyer leaving at all. People in the chat are fuming. There's people saying Dyer shouldn't be anywhere near this starting 11.
When you've got 1 year left in your deal and it's a cushy deal at a top Premier League club with the facilities that we've got, and you're not going to turn that down knowing that the offers probably aren't going to be as pretty. So unless someone does come in by some miracle, I don't know who. I'm just picking a name out. Let's say Crystal Palace for just an example. Unless someone like that comes in for him, he's probably going to stick around and just sit on the bench for a year until his contract's done. Then he has to pick of the lot, really, and better chances of getting a bigger contract somewhere else. So
agreed. Listen, guys, thinking of wrapping up in around 10-15 minutes. I can see there's 130 people watching on YouTube, which is brilliant numbers considering it was a bit of a last minute stream. As George knows me quite well, I do everything last minute. My planning is pretty poor, but if everyone could smash the like, we should be able to get to 100 likes on this video. There's about 60 so far and 130 watching, so let's do that. And let's again go over to George's channel, click the title in the video at George Achillea, hit that sub button and come straight back and watch, and then check out his content later. He does all sorts, vlogs at games, little exclusive videos, little shorts. George, I'm sure you'll be able to give a little more insight into what people can expect on your channel.
Yeah, I mean, it is exactly that. I think the vlogs have been a bit quiet in the last year or so. I think just sort of resetting my mind on what sort of content to make. But yeah, definitely sort of ramping it back up now with some shorts talking about new players, potential new lineups for next year, and this, that, and the other. And yeah, just definitely more fun videos to come for the next season.
Love it. Yeah, vlogs as well. So actually, one of my colleagues at work today said they love your like away days, and then you total up how much it is. And
I love doing those ones, man. I want to go to more like different places just so I can do stuff like that. I find that a lot more interesting than just vlogging, watching us lose.
Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, guys, like I said, go and check George out. It's quite the content's obviously Tottenham, but I actually see it as quite unique content. Like I said, the day in the life on away stuff. So please go and check him out. We'll go for another 10-15 minutes if you've got time, George.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap things up. But yeah, guys, really, I can already see you guys have already pushed it to 80 likes. Amazing support. Really do appreciate it. Right, let's talk about the new boy, 23-year-old Manor Solomon of Tottenham Hotspur now, but obviously formerly of Fulham now. When this got announced today, obviously no surprises. Fabrizio Romano gave it, here we go, around 10 days ago now. George, quick thoughts on Solomon. Do you think he's an upgrade on maybe a Danjuma, Lucas Moura type player, or do you think he's pretty much a solid backup? Are you excited? Did you rate him before we were linked with him? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's a good signing, especially with the fact that he's basically free. Look, he's probably coming in to effectively replace Lucas, who we've lost. Like you said, Danjuma's gone as well.
Yeah,
we've still got Brian Hill, but again, like you said, with the whole fact that Postecoglou is sort of giving everyone a fresh start in preseason to see what they're like, we don't know what his situation might be. He might be in the squad, he might not be. But what I really like about him is that he just seems to fit what we're looking for in a winger for that Postecoglou system, because I love Sonny to bits and I think he will be back on fire this year. But on paper, his characteristics don't necessarily match what Ange asks for his wingers. He wants them to be out a lot of the time in games wants to be really far out wide. They want to be good 1v1 specialists and take on players. And Son sort of lost that a bit now. He doesn't necessarily do that anymore. What he's really good at is, being quick, being on the last man, and sort of running between the defense where Kane plays the long balls over and he's running onto them one-on-one with the goalkeepers. That's what he's good at. He's not necessarily the type of winger that will take the player all the way to the touchline and then take him on towards the byline and cross it in. That's not really what Sonny does. So I think we definitely needed to bring in someone that can do what Ange wants his winger to do. And I think Solomon's a really good player. And I know a lot of fans are always banging on about the fact that, it's another free signing. This, it's just cheap and this, that, and the other. But look, the only reason he is free is because Ukraine are in obviously an awful situation right now with the war that's going on out there. He would have gone for a very decent chunk of money if that wasn't the case. Because look, he's proven in the Champions League with Shakhtar Donetsk. He's when I first really clocked onto him is when he started coming off the bench for Fulham towards the end of last season. He scored 5 games in a row, and a few of them were bangers, by the way.
Top right every time, or bottom right corner.
Literally, and some of them were so vintage-esque of like what Son would do from the left, cutting into the edge of the box, right foot, curls it into the far corner. But the really good thing about Solomon is that he's quick and he seems to be a good dribbler as well, because if you obviously see a few of his clips from his times at Fulham and especially at Shakhtar as well, there's the game specifically against Real Madrid in the Champions League where he was linking up. I think he was keeping Mudryk out the side a lot of the time for that Shakhtar Donetsk team. He's
not hard though. Mudryk's awful.
Well, yeah, true. Yeah,
no,
true.
No,
considering the fee that he's gone for, it's quite an interesting comparison.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that he takes on players. He's just very quick with the ball at his feet, and he's just quick in general anyway. And I think he's going to be a very underrated signing amongst fans. And look, he's not going to be a regular starter, but equally can probably play both sides, although probably more comfortable left wing. We'll have to see what Ange decides to do with Son in that case, or whether it's a rotation sort of situation. But I really do honestly think that he's an exciting player to have as a squad option.
100%. No, I completely agree with you, and a lot of people in the chat are agreeing with you. Adrian's saying Solomon is a big game player and scored against Man City, like you said, George, and Real Madrid in Europe. And Peter's saying Solomon is a very good signing, very good business by Levy, which is rare to hear on this channel, to be honest with you. Solomon is a right-footed winger who mainly plays on the left and can play on the right wing as well. So versatile. We always like that. Even can come on for Kulusevski maybe in games as well, which is great. And I think, George, I wanted to pick your brains on tactics with Solomon because let's get round to say January where Sonny gets to the Asian games, and then we've got our forward options are Kulusevski, Kane, Solomon. Would be the obvious probably front three, and then obviously got Maddison as the 10. What formation could you see Ange playing? I know I'm fast forwarding like 6 months here, but what do you think would be almost the front four in that situation? Do you think Solomon gets in at left wing, then it would be a right wing of Kulusevski, striker Kane, and 10 Maddison? Or do you think maybe there's another system that adapts to this Ange system where Solomon may play out wide and Kane drops deep? What do you think would happen?
Yeah, I think I imagine it's most likely that he almost directly replaced Son in the side while he's away. So I do think it will be just the Solomon left, probably Kulusevski, or even Porro, right? We don't really know yet. Again, we're going to have to see in pre-season what Ange thinks of Porro, whether he wants him to be a right back that moves into midfield, or if he actually does see him more of a right winger. And then Kane up front with Maddison. But I think the good thing about, especially the way Kane plays as well, you know how, like you're saying, about drops into the sort of 10 role. There's probably good reason as to why. Just trying to compare to Ange's Celtic, where obviously he had two very, very attacking 8s or number 10s, whatever you want to call them, that play in the half spaces, with the striker being at the front. With Kane, obviously liking to drop deep here and there, he almost becomes one of those sort of players that can drop into the half space, which does mean then whether it's a Richarlison or a Son or someone can make the burst runs into the middle, into the box, or again, Solomon is a player that starts out wide and then bursts into the box, and he's got a good long range shot on him. So I think he'll probably be a direct replacement for Son in the system, I imagine.
No, very, very well put, George. And Do you know what? Every time I'm talking attack, and this is going to sound really bad from someone that talks about Tottenham all day, every day, I just forget Richarlison because the guy, he, it's going to sound controversial, but he got to me a bit last year because he was so interested in getting over that line with that goal, and he kept taking off his shirt, and he kept getting yellow cards, and he kept getting offside goals, and I did feel sorry for him to an extent, but I just don't even know where Richarlison fits in. I don't want to completely sway the conversation, but just quickly, what are your thoughts on
Yeah,
Richarlison?
look.
And obviously, the interview earlier in the week, did you see he went on the Brazilian YouTube channel and he had that penguin or pigeon or whatever it was next to him, and it was all a bit jokey. And then he said about Conte was basically scolding him for 2 hours in front of everyone and basically berating him. What did you think of that? And what do you think of Richarlison's chances next season at starting?
It's going to be limited again, unless Kane does go to Bayern, if they come up with some miraculous offer for him. Because I think the problem is, like, even though he didn't have a great season at Spurs at all, I think what was really promising about Richarlison, in my opinion, is that, well, one, he scored 2 goals on his debut in the Champions League, which is obviously fantastic for any player, and 2, he had a brilliant World Cup with Brazil.
Yeah,
And now that was playing as the middle main number 9 striker in a front 3. And I think the problem is, while we've got Kane at the club, Richarlison's just not going to get a sniff
agreed.
because effectively Kane is in that position. So the issue that Richarlison is going to have is that he's going to be limited on game time again, unless, like you're saying, there is this weird, I don't know, Ange switches up his tactics. Not completely, but like does this odd thing where he takes advantage of the fact that Kane's a great creator as well. And maybe he starts technically with Kane and Richarlison up front together. But realistically, what happens is like I was saying, Kane almost drops into that half space and then Richarlison is up front. That's sort of the only way I can see both of them or Richarlison really getting into the team right now while Kane's here.
I agree.
Because as much as he has played left wing a lot at Everton, I just don't think that's really his most comfortable, especially right now. I think he has to be down the middle. And
Even at Everton, he would sort of slip up towards more of a number 9 situation. And I
yeah,
think I agree, George, in terms of with Kane dropping deep. Even though it might not be on paper as starting like this, I could see where we're going a bit more attacking if we had almost like the 2 6s or a 6 and an 8, and then Kane falls next to Maddison as like almost
exactly.
2 10s, almost like a 4-2-2, right? And then Kane, Maddison, and then you could have Sonny and Richarlison, or Richarlison and Kulusevski, or whoever it may be. That's where I can see the front line really forming in a different shape. And I've heard from, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm an expert on Ange's system, but I've heard that quite often happens with his system in terms of swapping wingers, or even the wingers coming inside and potentially the 9 dropping deep and then the 8s coming forward. I think it is quite fluid depending on the game, depending on the situation, and depending on how a game is going. If we're chasing a lead, I could see him throwing on Richarlison and maybe Kane dropping deep and spreading the play that way.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of like this Kane and Son link up as well, especially because how many times did we see actually this season? I noticed it quite a lot that Kane would actually drift out wide quite a fair bit, and
Yeah,
he would be the one almost in that half space looking to whip the ball into the box. And I definitely would not be surprised if it's the case that he does that again. And like you said, it's quite fluid, because I think that was one of the first things Ange made like really clear in a lot of his press conferences, is that it's not this necessarily like, yes, he has all these ideas of what he wants his attack to do, but it's not this really rigid, you've got to be in this position, you've got to be in that position. It's really fluid. It's like you're saying, maybe the Son comes in and is the main focal point up front, and then Kane drifts wide and delivers the ball in. Or same on the other side, maybe Kulusevski is coming in a bit closer and someone else is going, and Maddison is going overlapping further out wide. Like, I think we've got a chance to have a really fluid attack, but again, Richie it does just feel like he might be more of a rotation option. I think where Richarlison actually almost got a bit unlucky was that in almost every other previous season, Kane has got injured for us around the January time. And this is like one of the only seasons he's actually been available the whole year. So I think if it were to be a case that Kane got injured, then yeah, I think Richarlison comes in as a direct replacement and maybe plays a few cup games here and there. But
no,
yeah,
I think you're spot on. And actually, I wanted to pick up on something you were mentioning earlier, George, about sort of Sonny not necessarily losing his pace. A lot of people put it like that, but he didn't look quite as agile last season. He didn't look like he could beat his man as easily.
I think he just struggled to get the ball away out of his feet. It was weird. He would get the ball well, he'd be in great positions, but I don't know, his touch and control just seemed a little bit off last year.
But I think actually one of the best games I went to last season was the 6-2 against Leicester, and he actually came off the bench and was pretty much playing as a 9, running behind that line. Leicester looked absolutely awful that day, but he was getting in behind the back line quite easily. And I almost feel like Son should be experimented more as a 9 at times. I think he should probably start on the left. As that's where he naturally plays and cuts in, and he's famously great for what we said, smashing it top bins. But I almost feel like Sonny could be that second 9 as well if Kane drops deep or Kane's not available or whatever. So people are saying Richarlison. My opinion would be Sonny, but I don't know what you think on that.
Look, no, I agree with you as well, man, because even if we just think back to the Champions League days when Son basically had to fill in for Kane because he was injured during that time, especially that big game against Man City in the quarterfinal. Like throughout that whole period where Son had to step in, he really did step in and was unbelievable. Playing up front, and some it's weird. Sometimes he looks amazing up there. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, he needs to be on the left." I think the main issue with Son as well last year about him being on the left was that I think Perisic did just take up his space a lot. So it'd be interesting to see how that works. But like you said, I think what could really work well, especially to take advantage of the fact that we have really good attacking overlapping fullbacks or basically wingbacks in Porro and Destiny Udogie, is that maybe Ange does tweak his system slightly in that usually it's the case that the fullbacks are inverted and go into centre mid. Well, that doesn't have to happen in every single attack and every single occasion. It might be that Son makes that run into the number 9 position and you've got Destiny Udogie moving out to the left wing and providing from that side, because I think this season he got 3 goals and 4 assists. Last year it was 5 goals and 4 assists. So he's clearly a great attacking threat as well. So maybe there is like a case of, like you're saying, this fluidity around the games where Son's moving into the 9 position to be along with Kane, maybe at the back post, waiting for a Destiny Udogie cross, or maybe Son's out wide and then Kane collects it in the half space. Who knows? Like, I think what's really exciting about our team right now is that our attack is actually incredible. We've got such amazing options now, and Maddison has just put us up to such a high level in terms of creativity and even providing goals, that I think we're going to be such a joy to watch. It literally is just all about, can we fix that defense now? We've taken it one step by bringing in the goalkeeper, but we really do need high quality centre backs, and I really do think we'll have an incredibly exciting team next year.
Yeah, we've properly got on the Ange hype train in this.
I'm on it, man. All aboard. Choo choo.
Final point, and I promise this is the final talking point. I don't think I have a slide for this one. Oh, I wanted to just mention quickly some news on Lo Celso, guys, about Tottenham have apparently been approached by Betis for Gio Lo Celso, potentially on a permanent, and apparently there's 2 or 3 clubs in the race for him. So, George, very, very quickly, that wasn't my last point, so I lied. But Lo Celso, thoughts on him? Are you not too fussed if he leaves, or are you like a massive Lo Celso fan and you wish he was given one more chance?
No, I think the time has been and gone. I think he wants out more than someone. Well, I don't know about, maybe we don't know about Ndombele yet, but I'm just getting the vibe that Lo Celso just wants out and has been wanting out for the last year or so. I think, look, I'm willing to give anyone a chance, but at the end of the day, I think he is just really suited for La Liga a lot more, and I think he seems to enjoy his time out there. If we can sell him, bring some money in, I think great. I'd rather reinvest that funds and bringing in a young player that can play that role like Alex Scott or someone instead. So
100%, and bring in defenders. That's what we need.
Yeah, literally, if it means bringing in more centre backs of high quality, by all means, do it.
Yeah.
We've got enough centre mids. So.
And my last point, George, was we mentioned about Udogie and we mentioned about Porro. If we're playing this 4-1-2-on-2 or this, Ange system that's looking at four at the back, no matter what. Do you worry about the fullbacks in terms of Udoji's quite attacking, Porro's very attacking, almost people are saying he should be right wing. Do
Yeah.
you worry about those two fullbacks in terms of their defensive ability?
I do a little bit because, we saw it for the obviously since Porro joined that defensively he's just not great. And as far as I'm aware, I knew that when we went to sign him.
Yeah.
We brought him in as an extremely attacking right wing back because we needed someone to help Kulusevski on the right hand side going forward. And Emerson just was not cutting it in the attacking phase of play. So we brought him in knowing full well that his defensive stats were poor, but he can create going forward. Obviously, like you said, with us transitioning to a back four now, it does raise a few questions as to how he's going to be involved. Because as I was saying, Ange likes to play these inverted fullbacks where they go into centre mid, and the one player that's doing currently right now is Trent Alexander-Arnold for Liverpool. Klopp finally sort of bit the bullet there a little bit, and tried to transition Trent into a midfield role while still being a right back, and it seemed to work really well for those last few games. Yeah, so I would not be surprised if he tries to continue that trend. And to me, it's a possibility that Porro could do the same thing. He can be the right back, but at the end of the day, he'll be probably playing more in midfield alongside someone like Bissouma or whoever it may be. So there is a possibility, but he does then need to learn that role, considering he's been a wing back for most of his career. And we saw that especially in the Leeds game. The last game of the season, he was overlapping a lot more where Kulusevski was. So it might be that has to get trained into him. Whereas in the meantime, it might be that we're using one or the other and then playing a more defensive left back or right back on the opposite side. So I'm going to be really honest. Like I wanted Emerson gone a while ago when he wasn't performing, but towards the end of the season, I thought he really did step up quite well.
Surprisingly, wasn't it?
Yeah, like really surprisingly, especially as Mason sort of switched to this back four. And you know what? Was actually sort of almost doing that inverted fullback with Emerson against Leeds. I noticed a lot of the time Emerson would move more into midfield while Porro was doing the overlapping runs. So it might be the case that while Destiny Udogie is a very attacking left back, he might play on the left side, and then Emerson might be the right back because he's fine defensively. He's not amazing, but he's fine defensively.
Aerially, defensively, Emerson's fantastic, really.
Yeah, exactly. So there is the ability to do that. I think there's almost, if we're bringing in Van de Ven, there's the ability to do the opposite. You might have Porro be the right back and be really attacking, but then you've got Van de Ven who can fill in and be a more defensive sort of centre back, centre mid in transition. So I think playing both Udogie and Porro at the same time might be an issue. We might concede 4 goals a game, but hey, we might score 7. So who knows?
Maybe that 68 goals conceded might be beaten this year after all.
Yeah, maybe, but you never know. We might be top 4 with it, which would be like some new record or something. No doubt we'll break that. So look, the way I like to look at it is I try to be as positive as possible. I think we've just got really exciting attacking players, and I think we just need to really nail down the centre backs. If we nail down the centre backs, the defense from the fullbacks doesn't really become as much of an issue, especially if you've got a really fast centre back in Van de Ven who can cover while these fullbacks are going a lot further forward. So I think we just as Spurs fans got to maybe just face the fact that some games are going to be tough. We're going to concede quite a few goals, but at the end of the day, we are going to be seeing a lot more exciting football, and it should be fun to watch. And we've been missing that for the last 3 years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, George, spot on at the end there. Like, I've not wanted to go to a game. I'll be deadly honest with you. I used to go to games all the time, not season ticket holder, but I used to go to pretty much all the home games, and I just lost interest in even going end of last season. It was just like, get this season done with. But now we can be excited for the new season. George, I've got one more question, and it's a 1-minute question. I want your starting 11 ideal for August is it 8th or 9th? Who is your ideal 11 if you got to sort out the defense as well? And I've put you on the spot in front of 120 people watching on YouTube. Big yourselves up, guys. This stream is 5 minutes or so away from ending. So please, please, please do go subscribe to George. It's in the title of the video. I know I've said it 3 or 4 times, but please go over there. And I've just looked, we're 50 subscribers away. No, 49 subscribers away from 2K. So if you're sitting here not subscribed, please, please, please smash subscribe on this channel and George's channel. And yeah,
Appreciate it,
smash
man.
the likes. Nearly over 100 likes now. Really appreciate all the support tonight. But George, here's that question. Starting 11 next season. Give me your best shot.
Okay, if we're talking like budget's not as much of an issue, like these are the ideal signings I'd want to bring in with the players that we've been linked with, I'd say I'm going to go with the four. What would you call it? I guess it's 4-3-3, but yeah, 4-3-3 formation. We're going to go Vicario in goal.
Of course.
I think just because I don't think we're not going to play Udogie and Porro at the same time. I would say Emerson right back.
Agreed.
As much as I'd love it to be Porro and Udogie, I just don't see that
Yeah.
happening straight away. So I would say Emerson right back for now. Then I'd say Romero and Tapsoba. And then Destiny Udogie as my back four. I would also love Van der Ven as well, but you know, we'll have to see if that
beggars
happens.
can't be choosers.
Beggars can't be choosers. But if I had to say my first choice centre back signing, for me it would be Tapsoba. I think it would be Basuma in the number 6 role. I think he's quite press resistant, especially while we don't really have like an out and out defensive midfielder that's like of a high quality. Bentancur is going to still be injured, so I'm not going to include him. So then I'll have Maddison as, let's say, the right centre mid, one of the attacking midfielders. Alex Scott, I would love us to sign.
Wow, as a starter?
Only because Bentancur's injured. Because Bentancur's injured.
Fair enough.
Otherwise, he would obviously be that in that position for me. Then Kulusevski, Kane, Son. And then we'll have obviously the likes of Solomon, Porro, all being on the wings as options as well.
Perisic, potentially, all sorts of attacking options on the bench.
So many options attacking wise.
we're sport for choice for Richarlison. We're sport for choice in terms of attackers. It's those defenders. But hopefully in the next couple of days we see some news. Hopefully Van der Ven, here we go tomorrow, like George said, would be a nice midweek treat. Guys, that is all we have time for. I told George earlier that it would be a 30 to 40 minute stream. And you know what? Completely sidetracked, and you know, it's been good chat. You guys seem to have enjoyed it. There's been 120-30 watching, which is incredible support. One more time, smash the like, smash the subscribe on this channel, but more importantly, please do go and sub to George. He's going to be doing all his content again. Like he said, he's having a bit of a brain reset on his content, and it's going to be class, I'm sure. So please get over there for his time over here, and we really appreciate it at Spurs Related. Follow all our socials, follow George's socials. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, remember the score. Come on, you Spurs!